Imagine a hacker who doesn't want your credit card number. They want to lock your files with ransomware. They want something much more valuable, the ability to listen to everything. Welcome to Decode the Hacks. Today, we are investigating Salt Typhoon, the group behind what officials are calling the largest telecommunications hack in the history of United States. This isn't just another data breach. This is a story about how state-sponsored attackers infiltrate the very backbone of our communication net, Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, and gained access to the systems used for lawful wiretap. Over the next 15 minutes, we are going to break down exactly how they did it, the forensic evidence they left behind, and most importantly, how we stopped them. Let's get into the evidence. This is the big picture. We are talking about a sophisticated group of PRC, state-sponsored attackers. The intelligence community tracks them as Salt Typhoon. Their target wasn't just one company. It was a backbone of our communication infrastructure. They compromised backbone routers and edge devices at multiple US and international internet service providers. But here is the critical part. They didn't just break it. They targeted the lawful intercept systems that built for police wiretap. How did they do it? Not with magic. They used known vulnerabilities, CVEs that had patches available, and weak security practices like missing multi-factor authentication on admin accounts. The result? They gained access to call records, SMS metadata, and potentially the content of communications for specific high-value targets. This isn't speculation. This is confirmed by CISA Advisory AA25239A and excessive reporting from the Washington Post and Wall Street Journal. So how did this story unfold? Let's walk through the timeline. It reads like a slow-burning thriller. It started quietly in August 2024 when the Washington Post first reported intrusions at major US ISPs. At that time, the scope wasn't fully understood. By September, the Wall Street Journal dropped the name Salt Typhoon. They confirmed breaches at multiple internet providers. This was the moment the industry woke up. Then, in October, the other shoe dropped. Reports surfaced that wiretap systems were specifically targeted. We learned they had access to call metadata, who you called, when, and for how long. Fast forward to December, the White House finally acknowledged the global scale. CISA released hardening guidance, and by late December, we knew at least 9 US firms were hit. Finally, in January 2025, we saw the full picture with release of the Joint Cybersecurity Advisory AA25239A. This document laid out the TTPs we are going to analyze today. This timeline shows us one thing. This was not a smash and grab. This was a long-term, persistent campaign. Who was caught in the crosshair? We know for a fact that major US carriers were hit. Public reporting has confirmed Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile were among the victims. But the list is longer. Lumen Technology, Charter, Consolidated Communication, Windstream, at least 9 US firms were breached. And it wasn't just the US. This campaign spanned dozens of countries. What were they after? They weren't just looking for customer database. They targeted core network devices, routers and switches, and management planes. This gave them keys to the kingdom. When you control the management plane, you don't just see the data, you control how it flows. Now, let's get technical. How did they actually get it? The scary part is that they didn't need sophisticated zero-day magic for most of it. They utilized what was already out there. They targeted edge devices, the routers, and the firewalls sitting on the perimeter exposed to the internet. Specifically, they exploited known vulnerabilities in Ivanti Connect Secure, CVE 2024-21887, Palo Alto Networks Global Protect CVE 2024-3400 and Cisco iOS XE device CVE 2023-20198. If organizations didn't patch these immediately upon release, they were open target. Once they exploited these devices, they didn't come directly from Beijing. They routed their traffic to virtual private servers and compromised home routers, creating a mesh of obfuscation to mask their location. From that initial foothold on the edge, they pivoted. They used the telecom's own trusted network connections against them to move laterally deeper into the core network. Now let's talk about the most alarming aspect of this breach. CALEA. CALEA stands for the Communications Assistance for Law Enforcement Act. It requires telecoms to build backdoors into their network so law enforcement can conduct court-ordered wiretaps. Salt Typhoon didn't just stumble upon these systems, they hunted for them. By compromising the lawful intercept infrastructure, they essentially turned our own surveillance tools against us. This gave them access to real-time wiretap data. Think about the counterintelligence implication. If you are a foreign adversary, knowing who the FBI is wiretapping is just as valuable as the wiretap itself. It tells you which of your spies have been burned. This is why CISA and the FBI are so concerned. The attackers gained access to the very system designed to protect national security using the compliance interfaces mandated by the federal law. It's the ultimate irony and the ultimate risk. Now let's look under the hood. How did they actually operate once inside? We are mapping this to the MITRE attack framework. First, router configuration tampering. They didn't just pass through, they moved the furniture. They modified access control lists, the ACLs, to whitelist their own IP, often using generic names like access list 20 to blend in with normal admin activity. Second, traffic capture. This is the core of the operation. They used built-in router features like SPAN and RSPAN tools designed for network engineers to debug problems, to mirror traffic. They also use the embedded packet capture feature on Cisco devices to record traffic, specifically targeting authentication packets to steal credentials. Third, tunneling. To get data out, they built tunnel, GRE and IPsec tunnel, often chained through multiple compromised devices to create a complex relay network. Tools like Stowaway were used to manage these multi-hop connections. And perhaps most dangerously, on box containers. On Cisco devices that supports it, they enable the guest shell Linux container running directly on the router. They use this to install their own tool, run Python script, and stage data, all while hiding from standard router log. This wasn't just hacking, it was system administration for the adversary. Once they were in, they made sure they couldn't be kicked out easily. Their persistence game was subtle and effective. First, they modified access control lists. Look for generic names like access list 20 or 50. These innocent looking rules were actually explicitly permitting traffic from their command server. Second, they opened non-standard ports. They didn't just use port 20 for SSA. They used ports like 2222 or 54322. Patterns like they often used high ports in the 18,000 range. But the most advanced technique was enabling the Cisco guest shell. This is a legitimate feature that runs on Linux containers on the router. Salt Typhoon would enable guest shell, install their own tools inside it, run their commands, and then critically disable and destroy the container. This left almost no trace on the router's main operating system. It's like building a secret room, doing your work, and demolishing the room before you leave. So what did they steal? How did they get it out? Their primary goal wasn't just smash and grab. It was a surgical collection. They used the routers themselves to capture traffic. We found commands setting up packet captures, PCAPs, directly on the devices. They looked for files named things like mycap or tac.pcap. Why tac? They were targeting tac plus and radius traffic. These protocols handle authentication for network administration. By capturing these packets, they could steal the credentials of people managing that net. They also collected network diagrams, configuration files, and critically subscriber metadata. To get this data out, they hid in the noise. They used GRE and IPsec tunnels to blend their exfiltration traffic with legitimate network traffic. They staged files using FTP or TFTP locally on the device. They pulled them out over encrypted channels. It was a pipeline designed to be invisible to standard monitoring. If you are hunting for Salt Typhoon in your log, here is what the forensic evidence looks like. On the host level, look for capture files. They weren't always created. They used names like mycat, tac.pcat, or even just 1.pcat. For Cisco iOS XE device, check for your web server logs for WSMA requests. This is the web service management agent. The attackers use double encoded path like %2577 to bypass authentication. If you see this pattern, it's a red flag. Also, crucial tip from CISA: patch devices will add a specific header called proxy URI source to WSMA traffic. If you see WSMA traffic without this header on a device, that should be patched and investigation should be kicked off immediately. Look for a service called SSHD_OPRNS listing on TCP port 57722. This is a non-standard SSH service they enable to get root access to the underlying Linux OS. These are specific, actionable IOC. If you see them, assume a compromise. So, who is behind the keyboard? Who is Salt Typhoon in the cybersecurity world? We have many names for them. Microsoft calls them Salt Typhoon. Other researchers track them as Ghost Emperor, Red Mike, or UNC 5807. But attributions goes beyond just a cool name. The US government, along with intelligence agencies from the UK, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, has formally attributed this cluster to state-sponsored attackers from the People's Republic of China. This isn't a rogue criminal gang looking for a ransom payout. This is a disciplined, well-resourced intelligence operation. The evidence is so concrete that in January 2025, the US Treasury Department issued sanctions against specific Chinese companies and individuals linked to this activity. This moves the conversation from suspected hackers to identified state assets operating with a strategic mandate. While the US headlines have been dominant, this is not just an American problem. It is a global crisis. Investigations have revealed that Salt Typhoon activity has been observed in over 80 countries. This is a worldwide surveillance dragnet from Europe to Asia. Similar TTPs and infrastructure have been detected. The attackers are indiscriminate in their geography, but very specific in their target. Critical communications infrastructure. The response has been unprecedented. We have seen a joint cybersecurity advisory from the US and its Five Eyes partner, the UK, Canada, Australia, and the New Zealand. This level of coordination signals the severity of the threat. Domestically, the White House and CISA have released specific hardening guidance from telecom providers. They aren't just saying patch your system. They are providing detailed hunting guides to help engineers find these elusive intruders in their network. So what have we learned from the largest telecom hack in the history? First and foremost, discipline beats novelty. Salt Typhoon didn't use space-age magic. They used public vulnerabilities that were left unpatched. Basic hygiene patching. Known law is still our biggest weakness. Second, edge device visibility is critical. These routers sit at the border of our net, yet we often lack visibility into what's happening on them. Logs were disabled or deleted locally. We need to ship these logs off the device immediately. Third, secure the management plane. Authentication protocols like Tax Plus and Radius are the keys to the castle. If they are compromised, everything is compromised. We need stricter control, MFA, and monitoring of these specific protocols. And finally, audit your integrations. The CALEA compromise teaches us that even mandated government interfaces can be weaponized. Any backdoor, even a lawful one, is a potential front door for an adversary. So, what's the playbook? If you are managing a network today, here is what you need to do immediately. First, patch your edge. Prioritize CVE 2024-3400 for Palo Alto, CVE 2024-21887 7 for Ivanti, and the Cisco iOS XE vulnerability. If you can't patch, you must mitigate. Second, hunt aggressive. Don't wait for an alert. Actively search your logs for indicators. Look for guest shell enable command. Look for TACACS plus authentication requests going to IP addresses you don't recognize. Third, enforce MFA. It sounds basic, but multi-factor authentication on all administrative access, VPN, portals, management plane is non-negotiable. Finally, isolate your management network. Your management traffic should not be mingled with customer traffic. Use out-of-band management in strict segmentation. If they breach the data plane, make sure they can't jump to the control panel. This isn't about building an impenetrable wall. It's about making their job harder and your detection fast. So, where does this leave us? This brings us to the uncomfortable truth. This isn't a case closed. It's an active crime scene. The agencies have been clear. Salt Typhoon's operations are likely still ongoing. They are persistent, they are adaptable, and they are embedded deep. We need to move past blaming the victim. AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, they were targets of a superpower's military-grade cyber operation. But now we know the playbook. We know about the guest shell. We know about the CALEA targeting. We know about the port pattern. If you run critical infrastructure, download the CISA advisory, hunt for these indicators, assume you might be compromised. The lesson of Salt Typhoon is simple. There is no inside the network anymore. Treat your core routers like they were sitting on the public internet, because effectively they are. Thank you for watching this episode. If you like such investigative reporting videos, please do subscribe to Decode the Hacks channel and give this video a thumbs up like. Thank you. We'll see you in the next video.